Hello, and welcome to Resolve, an after-play show. This is an after-show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, but we tell you the details of our game so you don't have to listen to it. I'm Sammie, and I'll be your host. My pronouns are she, her, and I play Isiri Amoli, the mermaid. Joining me is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I use he, him pronouns. I also play Moogle bounty hunter Smog and his Malboro companion Juice. Both use he, him pronouns.
We are joined today by Dex.
Hello, my name is Dex Fan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm playing Athenos, who is a gender-bent furry version of Athena from the Greek pantheon.
We are also joined today by Zach.
Hi, my name's Zach. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm playing Tao, pronouns they, them, the techno musician. Not in the way you might think.
All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Now that we are all here, Alex, why don't you tell us about the actual play?
Previously, in EFFETE, Smog invisibly spies on the congregation while Father Shade takes the pulpit. He notices an angry man, a woman staring at Tao and Athenos, and Father Shade's tired state. Poni and Juice regroup with Horsefly. Horsefly presents them with a bucket of leaves and a strange, black substance found where Poni wounded the creature. Poni tells Horsefly about magic, and Juice provides an example with bad breath. Geyser's Strider honks in her pocket, and she returns it to normal size with magic. Scientists walk out, chat with Geyser and Isiri, and return home through the portal. Father Shade takes Athenos and Tao to his room after the service, while Smog cases it. In legend, the sleep beast gave the transforming power, needed to be expelled from a person to stop, has put whole countries to sleep, and is associated with a spear. Poni, Juice, and Horsefly find Isiri on their way to town with the bucket. Noticing that the black liquid is similar to the abyss, Isiri tries to commune with it. She has visions of town people sleeping in the streets and a figure with a spear. The angry man tries to accost the group, but Athenos intimidates him. The party visits Susie at Dr. Acula's house. Tao feels the presence of the beast in the house and a lesser pull on each party member.
Alright, so now that you heard the actual play, let's do a deep dive into the session. So right off the bat, Tao, Athenos, and Smog entering town, and they come across this group of people as the church congregation sort of starts to gather for a sermon. They're not welcomely met, but they're not repelled either.
My first move as Smog was to be like, ooh, I hear people murmuring in the crowd. Well, I'm going to add to that din and say that we definitely did not disappear in the middle of the night.
Blatant lies.
Blatant lying. You lie to these people, you shoot their dads into bookshelves. Like, what else? What else are we gonna do? All dads shot with Esper energy.
All dads hell.
Going up to them, I figured it was going to be, small town, they're all going to be super suspicious of us. But good way to get info. Especially if they start yelling at you about things that happened, and then you find out, oh, that's what happened.
Dan's doing a very good job, I feel like, of balancing a lot of different storylines at the same time. I might also just be stupid, so... I feel like he's doing a very good job of creating multiple narratives. I'm not sure which lead I'm supposed to be following at a given time, but it seems like a little bit is unraveled every single time we play.
Yeah, I like that we have the smaller World of the Lost problem, which is the most dangerous at the moment, but it's only affecting this one town as we see it. But then we also have the World of the Lost that we just ended up getting back from, and Sequence Charter stuff going on in the background as well, where they're waiting on us to give them updates to figure out how they can get to a new home. So, got a little bit of a lot of different things going on at once.
Even inside the world of spirit, there's so many things just slowly being pulled apart. Dan said in the previous episode that this is kind of geared like a midnight werewolf sort of thing. We basically have 4 suspects right now, don't we? For who the beast is, we have the obvious, which is the beast, it's its own thing. We have Father Shade being somewhat manipulative on the spectrum here. He's been kind of sus.
He has been.
Then we have Horsefly. We have something to do with a spear and this beast, and he's the only character we've seen with a spear. All these people have also been related to Susie somehow, and God's forbid that Susie is the culprit here, but
Tao's a little bit suspicious of Susie there, hence the, investigating around at the end, seeing if, does Susie have, some of the beast inside her, and it's coming out to attack people? But
oh my god, I was coming at it from a completely different angle of, where's Susie, as in, protective older brother, where is Susie? I must save her from whatever beat. Did we leave her alone for too long? Is she gonna fall asleep next?
Well, new conspiracy theory if we want to put on the wee-woo sirens.
Okay, last time I was on this podcast, y'all woo-woo siren some Terra Bob 26 Bob bullshit back into our game. So now I'm so wary of you. You're gonna say something and it's gonna be true. I'm ready.
mm-hmm.
What if the beast is jumping every time it's getting into its target, and we're not focusing on finding one person who's causing this, but the current host?
That is possible, but yeah, who knows? You might have actually shot the beast out of Susie's paw that first time, and then it got into Acula.
I'm thinking of that because we were presented this time with the idea that the beast is explicitly what gave them their powers, at least in legend. Yes, there is a little bit of the beast in all of them.
that's true.
Oh, that brings me back around to one other thing that I was thinking in the moment, but Tao did not feel like sharing with the group at the time. The last night, Dr. Acula, the only one we saw turn into his animal form after he saw Susie's paw asleep. So he transformed into a bat to get into the room.
Horsefly also turned into a frog in that scene with Poni that same night.
True, but he wasn't anywhere near them.
Bro, he was some miles away.
Now we have Susie turning into a ladybug in the room right next to Dr. Acula. If she's the next victim,
Oh,
got those wee-woo sirens going.
Baby, we can't do this.
Even more technical with Horsefly, we don't know if he transformed at all that day until Poni came over, because he could have been a frog for more than a day.
Yeah, he could have just been hanging out as a frog in the swamp.
God, I wish I could hang out as a frog.
I do think it's very interesting that there's some quote-unquote aspect of the beast in all these people, and they all have the ability to transform into some animal or other. I'm very torn between whether or not this is a spiritual entity, something that can move in between people. But we do have from a couple sessions ago where Horsefly and Poni actively hit the beast, or what they thought was the beast, with a physical harpoon. We're still not sure what that was.
No, and there's clearly some aspect of some material there, because Isiri was able to commune with the beast on some level using that blood or ichor or whatever it was.
I'm glad that Dan is giving us convergent clues. Having multiple points of evidence for something really helps to solidify it, not just in my mind, but a character's.
Here's a kind of weird question. At the end there, Tao noted that there was traces of the beast on us, the player characters. Do you think at some point, if we stay here long enough, we'll get the power to transform?
Well, I wouldn't put it past Dan to give all of us some of that. The majority of the party is already furries, so...
We did actually talk about this a little bit in an earlier episode. We're like, well, everyone's furries. What happens? Oh, what's the human form of everybody?
Oh, it's the Gajinka version?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's everybody's Gajinka form?
I will say I put some hints in my backstory when I originally handed it to Dan that there may be a point where Tao starts turning into a full-blown dragon.
Yeah, we did say the exception was Tao, and Tao would have a dragon form.
Isiri's gonna go Little Mermaid on us.
I hope not. That would be terrifying for her.
It would.
Maybe you'll go Ursula on us.
Oh, please. Yeah, it just switches, the tentacles goes to the bottom and her top part goes to normal.
She just flips over. She just turns upside down, and then she is Ursula.
Some in-game action on...
Yes.
We're going to start relating everybody to Pokemon stuff at some point. So we've got in-game Element, Dynamaxing.
Did we already reference Dynamaxing?
Athenos is Dynamaxing all the time.
It's true. He is constantly
He is Gigantamaxing, let's be real.
We used the max power in this session, even.
We do know a little bit more about, well, we is a strong word. Smog knows a little bit more about the beast than I think a lot of us do at the moment, because Smog read through the rest of the book. I don't think the rest of us looked through the rest of the book that Father Shade had. And I think Smog found out that this is a god that we're dealing with, and that the people have slighted it in some way. I think Isiri has some feeling about this as well, that the people have slighted the god in some way, or like the god is angry.
At least in that little conversation that Isiri had with whatever the entity, if it is the beast, if it's just a reflection, we're not sure yet. But all points lead to something close to it. Isiri determined that it would not be acting this way unless something had disrespected or slighted it somehow. It's just way too aggressive, at least in her understanding of how this cosmology stuff works. So it definitely gave her the bad feeling, TM.
To be fair to Father Shade, because Smog is going all like, oh, Father Shade has an atheist agenda. He exists in a society that has, for a very long time, had an atheist spirituality, and is looking back on texts that are now a little bit talking about a god that he can't find anywhere else. And this god might not be in legend anymore because it hurt people. There is a natural progression that you can kind of see in there. But Smog definitely believes we need to have this thing revered again so that it stops wanting to hurt people, so that it stops feeling forgotten.
Yeah, meanwhile, I as a player think, oh yeah, that would be a pretty good solution. Tao is thinking, fuck no. This thing started putting people into comas, basically, against their will, kidnapping them. Well, not really kidnapping them, but giving him flashbacks to stuff in his backstory of another character kidnapping a bunch of innocent people and acting like a god over them. So Tao is more along the lines of, we need to beat this thing up until it stops doing that.
I think Athenos is in the same boat for like a semi-different reason. So Athenos obviously is a god himself as well. And he comes from a very petty family. He understands like pettiness, but like sleeping an entire country for like however, I don't know how long this has been going on, but you've been slighted ages ago, right? People forgot about you and you are still on your like petty BS. This is like, you need a slap. You are a person, a being in a position of power, and you cannot be abusing your subjects like this. It's very rude.
I'm really hoping that when this ends, we have even teams that are approaching these things from different sides. It's really interesting to have this idea of the people that Smog views as gods fighting the god, and then the more mortalish people trying to restore the god's place. That's a very interesting sort of split to do. Although I think at this point, it might be Isiri and Smog just grab Geyser because she's the person who can entertain people, and Poni seems very interested in fighting. That's also an interesting little, like, there's a one-person swap on those teams.
Geyser hasn't really announced an opinion. I mean, they're pretty lackadaisy about sharing their opinions on things they actually care about. Yeah, it's interesting that Geyser isn't, or at least hasn't stated their opinion on where they exactly fall quite yet, because they're kind of in that space between, right? They are a product of imagination, and you could sort of argue a god is a product of imagination, but they're also very tied to the physical realm, so them not having a stated opinion could mean something more, but with Geyser, it's hard to tell.
On the one hand, I do think that's part of like Geyser's whimsical nature. I'm sure we'll find out very soon how she feels. But Geyser's player, Dee, was also like very sleepy that night, so I wouldn't be surprised if she has to do a little bit of catch up to process what information we've gotten to form the opinion on Oanzu.
I think Oanzu are the people.
Ah, got it.
Yes.
So we still don't know the name
The
of
Beast.
the beast.
Yeah, all we know is the sleep beast so far.
Love that. I love Sleep Beast.
Beware the beast, pilgrim.
There's something so endearing, maybe it's not the word, but interesting to me about beings that act through sleep and dreams and that sort of thing, like the Cthulhu mythos. Interesting how that like subconscious connection could hypothetically bring you closer to that power and be your downfall.
You know who wouldn't be described as endearing typically? Cthulhu.
Typically, no. But this is me.
Typically, no. But
I love my little monsters. And look, a scary baby
They're
Cthulhu
like,
if you think
wow.
hard about it.
A sleep beast god that might be an eldritch being trying to communicate with me? Okay!
It's happened before, it'll happen again.
Yeah.
It was really funny this past session watching Isiri who, like, by all other accounts is like our sweet cinnamon roll, who's bubbly, who's like afraid of the surface world, who's like nervous, and then this like elder being, this god of some sort, talks to her and she's like, you seem like you need a therapist, and that could be me. She's super fine with it. I find like that, like she's like that. She's super fine with that, and then she's like, air.
Well, one thing she knows is air is going to kill her. But the other thing is, this thing is dark and creepy and cold, and it reminds her of home. So that's why she's a little bit more open to it, and it's inky black as the abyss is for her, and the same sort of deal. It's unknowable, it's everywhere, it moves in ways we can't understand. So she's like, okay, I feel like I'm probably the person here that's best equipped to talk to you. So I can at least try to understand you on some level. And she is terrified. She does shiver and she like reacts poorly to it during the scene where they talked. But it wasn't as intimidating as talking to you guys for the first time or dealing with whatever the hell the sequence charter.
I love that this has also created an opportunity for Smog and Isiri to be on the same page. We found that bridge between the light and the dark playbooks. We've got Isiri as the light and the darkness, and Smog as the darkness and the light.
I'm glad you're reciprocating on that, because one of the things I would like to do is to have Smog and Isiri just like link up somehow and just be the Twilight.
We've talked before about how Smog and Isiri are the two really religious characters in their own ways. They have very different approaches to most people, most situations, but very similar respect for higher power.
It's very cinnamon roll thing to do, to be like, I don't want to fight the thing. I want to make friends with the thing. It's still very, the direction you've gone is still very in your character.
Yay, that's good. Why would she fight what she views as part of nature in the world? Like, that doesn't make any sense either. I think she'll defend herself and, like, try her best if push comes to shove. But her first instinct is like, oh, we need to solve the problem. And clearly there's a big problem here, or you wouldn't be acting that way.
The problem is there's a god who's, like, not uplifting his people. That's, like, red flag number 1 for godhood.
There are people who are not uplifting their god.
That's true. They're of a lesser power, so like there's only so much lifting.
If you get enough of them together, they can push up and we can move the town somewhere else, you know?
Smog is already thinking about how to use Isiri's better nature to his advantage in the endeavor here. I'm not afraid of like sharing what my thoughts are for the next session because they almost never go exactly how I think about them. But right now I think Smog is like, all right, we have to put on a show for the town. Smog can tell all the children all the cool, violent stuff that's going on. And for the higher-minded, better people, Isiri can put on a concert. A Christian rock concert.
We're not doing that. Absolutely not. Yeah, let's listen to some Creed real quick. Let's go.
You want to put on a Switchfoot concert for this town? I mean, come on.
Jar of Clay, baby.
I think such a tricky part about this campaign thus far and this mystery surrounding the beast is like, since we don't know the facts surrounding the beast, it's very hard to convince these townspeople one way or another to do something, because even if we tell them not to sleep, not to do one thing or the other, to like not succumb to the beast's magic, we still don't know if like that's what's actually happening, and like no one seems to be very interested in telling us.
I don't think anyone really has the information except Father Shade, and he wasn't interested in telling us. Smog got a little more info, but again, he hasn't shared all of that, just the fact that this was once a god, basically, and the stuff about the spear.
That's the extra information that Smog got. Father Shade told everyone everything else. It's just that Smog didn't completely contextualize it as this is what Father Shade gave you, and this is what he didn't give you. He started with, he didn't give you that this thing literally gave him the power. And then later on, when Isiri mentioned a spear, he was like, oh yeah, that was part of it too.
That's the other thing is the way Father Shade, and then this could be true, this could be him lying to us. Isiri was not there to verify this. If this thing has fallen so far down into like the realms of folklore and that only one book out of his collection had it, the other people just generally may not know.
Honestly, Father Shade may not know much more than he's telling us. He might not be this, schemer in the background that everyone seems to think he is.
But why was he acting so strange when y'all entered the church? He sounded exhausted, and I think it could be just staying up all night. But the fact that he was, like, gripping his podium and walking weird sounds like he got injured, too.
Could be he was staying up all night to attack people!
I did explicitly ask Dan because I was curious about that as part of a push to stress question. Does it look like he's been here all night researching? And Dan didn't give me anything to indicate that he was not in that room looking through books. So I was like, okay, I think he's not the beast, or he wasn't the beast last night if there's some sort of jumping thing happening.
He did also seem like genuinely concerned about the rest of the townsfolk when we were talking to him. Like, he was like, no matter what you do, like, make sure that the townsfolk are, like, taken care of. And this beast, I feel like, doesn't have that compassionate mind at the moment. Perhaps in the past, but right now it seems to be, like, seeking a very, like, slow vengeance of some sort, perhaps. In Athenos' eyes, Father Shade isn't quite as sussy as he was before. Still didn't give us all the information, or maybe he didn't understand all the information as we understood it.
I feel like he probably intentionally hid the whole godhood thing, but who knows what his motives might have been for that.
Once again, to give him the benefit of the doubt, as me, not as Smog, he is a religious leader, and this religion does not really latch on to godhood anymore. He seems very confused, and it seems difficult to deal with Athenos talking outright about being a deity. It might be more that he has this internal discomfort he's working through than like explicitly being against the concept of a god.
It also could be him just not wanting to share things with outsiders either, because we're not 100% trusted by the town.
Oh, I would say that we're like nearly 100% not trusted by the town.
We are their top suspect, I'm sure.
They're like tolerating our presence at best, which is why we had to do that Dynamaxing intimidation tactic. Now I think they're like more convinced that we're like here to help because we didn't
Dynamax chokehold.
Yes.
We need somebody to work on Athenos' PR just a little bit.
Yeah, that's where we got the title for this session, this episode.
Getting on the nerves of a god. Not usually a good idea.
No.
I think I said when we played that gods love being trifled with, but you can't like get on a god's bad side, right?
They love tricking each other, playing games, but you don't want to actively annoy one.
Yeah, doesn't end too well. We are here on behalf of the Sequence Charter to find the core of this world. How close are we getting to that?
The only info they gave us on finding the core of the world was make connections with the society, hence us going to the church right away.
The beast is what's eluding us, so I feel like it's going to be the beast.
I feel like the core and the beast are like intrinsically tied in some way. Maybe even in such a way like the people have like lost the way of the world, like the core. Like what if like the beast, this entity, this god was like the core essence of the world and like the people forgot it. That's why it's mad. And it just wants to be remembered. I don't know.
I wonder if that's why the world of the lost is so closely connected here, because the beast is lost, and that's why the world of the lost is so fucked up right now, because it has an angry beast rampaging through it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the beast is just in the world of the lost and it's like affecting the world of spirit somehow.
I wonder if that's going to be something that becomes a bit of a running theme. Like, this is the world of spirit where the people have lost their spirituality. We may see that going into other worlds as well. So definitely something I'm going to be thinking about as we find out the names for other worlds, at least.
But what the hell was the stomach about? That's still bothering me.
I was just about to say! This is what I'm talking about, like about these like weird narratives that he's juggling. What was that whole thing for? Why? A silver stomach?
If we go back and find another organ, I'm like, we're building a body for this dude. I don't like it.
My suggestion last episode is we're going to make a robot body.
We are going to build Thompson and send him back in time.
And Thompson's going to live in a society. That'll be the core of the world.
It's like the opposite of Build-A-Bear, because Teddy is the one making this thing.
Ooh, we're gonna build a child.
A child.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big yikes. Are we asking the wrong questions?
Oh, absolutely.
How old are these people? Like, how old are the people in this village? Like, Susie's like a child in our eyes. In their years, what is she? And how old is Father Shade? How long has he been around?
I had a thought about that because I was like, ooh, what if Susie's like a Tiki situation?
Pulling in a Fire Emblem Heroes reference.
That's part of Tao's backstory,
True.
so...
That's true.
So far, there have been a lot of sub-themes from each of our characters put into this world. I'm sure that's intentional on Dan's part, but like it's interesting to see how they've been like brought to the surface here.
I'm very impressed that he's managed to create this one world that encapsulates like bits from like a lot of our characters.
If this was a Tiki situation, I think she wouldn't be a ladybug, she would be a dragonfly.
Oh,
Oh my god.
God, when Dan was like, Susie's sad, and I just need to be a ladybug right now.
Oh,
That's the
God.
saddest sentence he could have uttered in the world, and I wanted to die.
Absolute saddest. I felt so bad suspecting her of putting two people into comas after that, but I still did it.
She's a baby!
Must protect.
she is a baby. We must protect. Everyone else, look, we got to figure out something else for these people.
Listen, I personally am fond of Dr. Acula, but like when it push comes to shove, it's Susie.
We gotta save Susie, Dr. Acula, and Pa thus far, and presumably the rest of Horsefly. The rest of the
For
village.
sure. The rest of them, they're okay.
Me, Sammie, is infatuated with Horsefly because Swamp Boy is a character type that I'm very fond of. But also, Isiri has very mixed feelings about Horsefly right now because she's like, you have a weapon that you're not certain of the origins of, and it has something to do with what I just saw in a vision, and now it's gone, and you don't know the details about it. That's weird.
Yeah, I really want to know what the hell's going on with that spear. Part of the next session, what I want to do is see if maybe the spear has been dissociated from the beast in lore and ask people if they have any like folk tales about the spear. Part of what I'm interested in doing is I picked up another advancement this time from the Linksmith where they can create an item from someone's memory, and I want to flavor it like Moogle crafting and Magitech.
I love
so
that.
I'm like, maybe if the spear is important, Smog can get people to tell him about it and try to craft it.
Maybe we can get Valentine's help hunting monsters for weird rare drops like silver stomachs.
Explicitly one of the things, because it's not even a roll, it's just Dan picks some conditions that you have to meet, or like it'll be slightly worse. One of the things is you have to get something from another world. So perfect. We have to go hunting in the world of the lost to find something to put it together.
Because of how magic works in this world, it's weird being a god in a role-playing scenario because I feel like at any point I can just make something happen. And I've been trying not to do that specifically because that doesn't like feel like in the spirit of the game. If I was just like, I would like the spear now, please, and like used like magic to sense of where the spear was, I feel like that would be just like a weird cop-out, you know? Like we didn't learn anything.
That's definitely something we could do, but then there's also going to be some obstacles in the way. It's not just you're going to hold out your hand and summon the spear like Mjolnir.
Spear.
I have a feeling if you do that, Dan's going to come back with, oh, you're going to struggle because it's like not of your domain or not of your worldly understanding, something like that.
Right.
I think it's totally fine if like you're in character as Athenos and you're like, I try to do this thing, and then Dan's like, you're disconnected from everybody who worships you right now. Like, yes, you're very powerful, but you don't have a lot of the source of that power.
I like that.
Oh, and you've been spending a lot of power.
I have been, just frivolously for fun.
You need to get some more worshippers. Town needs to get some more fans. We should, hang out with the townspeople a bit more. Get them to like us if we can in any way do that.
Oh, you want to join us in smoozing with the townspeople?
Yes.
Yes. I'll gather up all the townspeople and we do a concert to hype them up to go hunt the beast.
No, let's not do that.
That doesn't sound very Christian rock of you.
We talked about this last time when you weren't here, Dex, but if Athenos undergoes a big change, it's sort of weird to conceptualize because he is a god and he is usually the source of a change rather than things enacting change on him.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of form do you think that would take? For example, fills his harm clock or spends all his links or whatever and something happens. Would you just let him fade away, or would you try to adjust the situation?
That's a really tough question, because thus far, context for this, Athenos did take harm for the first time since we started playing. And I really haven't figured out what that looked like beyond what Dan described, which was a villager literally punched him. So, while I was turning into a giant wolf boy carrying a man, the man punched me and I took harm. I still haven't figured out what that's like, aside from, I would like to imagine that a lot of the gods from the Greek pantheon are not above pain or above feeling things. Like, Athenos loves eating, he likes sleeping, resting, feasting. He loves partaking in all of these mortal behaviors. And I like to imagine that he also feels things on a mortal level to some extent. Like, the gods who were once mortal, pain isn't a new thing. It's just rare that it is on a level that is dangerous to him. Usually it has to be inflicted by another god in his original world. So I guess in that way, he's not a stranger to pain, so he would just experience it. A force exerting power over him definitely would be an interesting dynamic, because in his mind, it would have to be an incredibly powerful force, either created by a god or of another god itself. So for now, with this sleep beast, he could just view the sleep beast as or sleep god as a very powerful entity. Yeah, I think that's the answer.
One other interesting way to flavor that might be in terms of Thanos taking harm. He was punched by that guy in front of a gathering crowd of villagers, so he may have lost some esteem in the minds of the public, and he's not quite getting as much power from them, or someone powered by worship like Athenos.
I do like that.
Sammie and I have had this question before about what does it look like for Athenos to change playbook, especially if taking harm. And I like that idea of being shaped not by the physicality of pain, but the way that people view you as the memory. Mm-hmm. So maybe it could be I've filled my harm clock and that's changed me. That's right. Given me my new epithet that Sammie was talking about when we talked about this before. And I've taken on a new aspect of myself, and that's why I have a new playbook.
Very interesting compared to, say, Tau, where we're both playing memories. Very similar in that aspect, but once Tau gets to the point of changing playbooks, it's probably something more along the lines of becoming more of a self-actualized person that isn't entirely fueled by other people and not entirely reliant on other people. Whereas for Athenos, it's kind of a loss in power.
Right.
This is the first time that Juice and Smog really split up. How is it playing both sides of an amalgam?
It's easy continuing with Smog because he's so fucking smart and self-sufficient. Even if he can get into trouble, he always knows how to spin it. Being Juice and not being able to articulate myself is difficult. And this is the first time I just had to play Juice alone in a scene, and it was fun to figure that out.
Right, you mean nobody understood?
No one understood bad breath magic. I played an amalgam in the previous interstitial campaign that we played together. And I thought it was very interesting when you, Smog and Juice split up, because the way I played the amalgam, I was still the characters were almost always together still. So I think this was a really interesting way of being a part of both scenes in very different ways.
Yeah, I also tried to frame it as I was hanging back a little bit in both of those scenes. Smog could only be eyes because he needed to be hidden, and Juice was told to take direction from Poni. The only reason that Juice used the bad breath is because he was trying to help Poni demonstrate the concept of magic.
Right. Which, by the way, Horsefly's concept of magic seems like something we should dig into a little bit more, because we basically just got from him, oh, you're talking about all these crazy cool things magic can do, but that's not what I think of as magic. And
when magic was first brought up by Poni, Horsefly was like, oh, you mean card tricks and rabbits and stuff? So he's thinking of a very our world sort of like, oh, you're a magician.
stage
you
shows.
Sleight of hand sort of thing. The idea of true magic is not really a thing for them as far as at least horsefly goes. I'm not sure if we haven't taken a sample of the whole population, I guess. They wouldn't understand their changing of form as magic, which falls in line, I think, with Isiri a little bit, because she tells Poni, like, what is magic too? Because her doing her siren nonsense is not magic to her, it's just something that she does.
Right.
It also falls in line with them not having a concept of a deity who has these special supernatural powers. It's sort of all linked together, and I think Isiri might be a good bridge for that concept for them.
We're making connections whether they like it or not.
Yeah, we're getting to know this society, and we will find out what's at its core. And is it capitalism?
No.
We're definitely going to run into capitalism because that's big for at least two of our characters, so...
True, yeah.
You know what's wild is, like, this is our first world.
I know, I was just thinking that. I was like, we have, like, what, 4 other worlds, maybe 4.5 other worlds to go into if we count World of the Lost? What are we doing? And Dan says we can go back to these. It's not like Alex's campaign where, like, the arcade machine shuts down. Like, we're going to be able to go back and forth if we want to.
Oh yeah, I made it super hard for y'all to go back there. I'm like, maybe you'll need something at some point, so I'll leave the option if you guys really need to force it, but they just sort of shut down so that you were not encouraged to.
In my version of that campaign that I played in, we did actually end up going back into a couple of those worlds after they had shut down, and one of them, it was just fine. One of them ended up being probably not a good place to be.
I had some nasty stacked consequences from previous failures for you when you went back to your hub world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got back there and reality was basically collapsing, so that was great. The entire lore of the apartment building that all of our characters had lived on was gone. It just went from floor 3 to 5. I'm interested to see if these different worlds end up being more of a consistent presence that we end up going back to instead of just a visit one and on to the next.
Yeah, I was very happy to have some sort of connection to Horsefly in that session because Horsefly is such a fun character, and for the one session that we had with them before, it was just Poni who got to interact. So it was fun to create some sort of connection to that character, even if it was mostly him marveling at this weird plant beast.
I like Horsefly. I feel like Tao doesn't particularly care about him yet, which is sad because I really want to interact with him more. Gonna have to find some way to sneak in there.
Athenos and Tao really haven't had the opportunity to talk to Horsefly just yet, so maybe that'll happen next session.
If you're going hunt.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Maybe he'll be part of the hunting party.
It's so bad, too, because, like, Isiri loves hunting. Before she was put in this, like, priestess situation, she was a hunter-scavenger. That was her job. So it's something she's good at, but she's also like, I don't know if we can or should do that.
A hunt in Athenos' eyes does not necessarily involve killing the huntee, the prey. That's the word.
Especially when you're hunting a god. It's more of a game.
Yeah, we're having fun here.
You know what we haven't talked about much yet is Geyser and the Strider.
That really just came out of nowhere, huh?
I liked it.
Yeah.
It was just like honk honk, and then here we go, Strider in the swamp, baby.
I was not at all expecting that Strider to be manned when they gave it to Geyser, because...
Yeah.
What?
Forgot that I shrunk the Strider to give to her, so... But isn't that just like a god to do?
That's so funny to me because I remember that role being middling, so I was like, something weird is going to happen to the Strider eventually. And every session I'm like, nothing with the Strider yet. And it got to the point where when Dan finally brought it up in this session, I wasn't expecting it to be the Strider. I was like, why is there honking in Geyser's bag? And it came out, I was like, it happened! The Strider's back! And there were people in it?
But we did learn something interesting, because those guys were with us overnight. And other than the whole shrinking thing, Isiri was like, did y'all have any, like, weird dreams? And they were like, no. Nothing happened to them while they were sleeping, so they clearly weren't affected by whatever the hell's going on.
I guess that means that Geyser's Hammer space is like a separate little
Well-
realm that is protected from not being able to sleep then.
Did we hear anything about weird dreams from the rest of the townspeople? I don't remember that being like a big thing.
Wait, Geyser didn't have any of her shit when she was in the World of the Lost.
Yeah, none of us had our stuff.
Where was the Strider?
The same place as Rig.
Ugh, I'm so upset at myself. I never made time in the last session to have Smog review the camera footage from the previous night from Juice's camera. So I'm going to try to get that in at some point this time and be like, what the fuck happened in the World of the Lost?
We desperately need to do that because if we never physically left, which is what Dan seems to be implying with the World of the Lost, then that tells us something.
I am very surprised that the Strider made it through unscathed the entire time Geyser was fighting a bug.
Well, Geyser didn't have stuff in the World of the
Oh.
Lost. None of us had any of our
Yeah.
gear.
None of us had our stuff.
So if we look at the footage, we might be able to figure out where the hell the stuff went.
Maybe it was just sitting there on the ground until we got back.
Presumably we still had our clothes.
Right.
which-
Yeah, we still have our
But-
clothes.
Siri is naked, so that's not a
fair,
problem
that's
for her.
fair.
Smog had a transformation where he lost his clothes, but that's his own thing.
Smog babyified.
Tao had to go a few hours without a cell phone, which is basically a death sentence. So
Oh my god.
Now I'm imagining Tao as like a Gen Z influencer. Not me without my cell
that
phone.
is absolutely what Tao is. They're definitely a Gen Z influencer type.
Let's go to our favorite wrap-up question here. What during the session would you have done differently if you thought of it or could have done otherwise?
I probably would have done some more investigating. There was one person that specifically caught our attention in the church that may have been a bit important, but other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot that I would have done particularly differently. There's some spots where it would have been nice to speak up a bit more, talk to Horsefly, for example, but giving everyone else the space to interact with everyone in a, 6-person game?
7 if you want to include the GM.
6
Mhm.
players, so leaving a bit of that space is always good.
So the fun thing about playing a god is that, and I really like to get into my characters, not that I become like anything like Athenos like while I'm actually playing the game, but he makes his decisions without any perception that he could be wrong. Making decisions just feels very fun, and I don't think I would have done anything different per se. Maybe like talked more with Father Shade, see what he truly wants, like why he's hiding information from us, that kind of thing. But again, no regrets, none here.
Me, Gungaga. No, I would have looked at the fucking camera footage, of course.
Yeah. I don't think this is a regret, but I do think it would be interesting if I had done this differently. I intentionally cast the illusion of the like dark cloud around Isiri because I think Isiri saw Smog was coming back up the road and didn't want them to see that she was talking to yet another spirit and didn't want them to get mad at her again. So I think it would be interesting if she was like, well, whatever, let's just talk to this thing. I wonder how that would have changed.
I think we were all on our way back at that point. I think you were already feeling like semi-protective of this natural spirit. At least from my perception, it was a protective of the spirit kind of situation. Like you already knew that Poni had tried to hunt this thing before. Athenos is god of the hunt.
Juice also tried to hide the bucket from you.
That's true, I had to bribe him with dead things. Let's get into our resolution phase, the segment of the show where we each get to say something about the game with no responses. What is your final say on this session, Dex?
Let's go hunt the god. As mentioned, I'm Dex Fan. You can find me on Twitter at DexFanWrites. I am a writer and a all-around creative in general, and that's it for me.
Okay, what about you, Zach?
I'm Zach. You can find me at Zach Defense on Twitter, and Tao is definitely going to turn into a dragon before we leave this world.
And you, Alex?
I am continuing my series of arcs for other characters where Smog turns them absolutely evil. So we're going to have the Athenos Titan turned arc. You can find me at Twitter at ShiningCrowbat. I also highly recommend Dimension 20's most recent season, A Court of Fae and Flowers. It is based on Regency and has all sort of Dungeons and Dragons Fae things tied in. There is a social game that they've added. I wish I could remember the name, but I will add it in the links as well. It's all about Regency nobility meeting up at parties and sending letters to one another that really works with the social aspect of some of the spells the characters chose. Just very masterful, and I highly recommend checking it out.
Absolutely. Second that. Oh, wait, I'm not allowed to respond.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
That wasn't my thing, that was the plug, so you're good.
While we're here, can we also plug watching the Over the Garden Wall again because it is spooky season?
Hell yes.
When this comes out, it might not be spooky season, but you should watch it anyways.
Truly. And then for myself, it looks like we might be splitting the party a little bit here, at least opinion-wise. I hope that doesn't come out and be a weak point for us. That would be very unfortunate. You can find me in the crypt. I'm the one up on the curtains, leaving spiderwebs all over. This has been Resolve, an afterplay show. You can find us online at most social media sites at ResolveAP.
Except Instagram, which is at ResolveAfterplay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. You can buy the game we're playing, Interstitial, Our Hearts Intertwined, from its creator, Riley Hopkins, at linksmithgames.com.
All links will be included in the description of the episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We end our turn here, so now it's your turn. What's happening in your game?